Hi, I'm Leah Wright. I'm here today with Refuge to share my story, to recognise the red flags which I experienced in my abusive partner's behaviour, for other survivors to maybe take note and be able to recognise that they are going through similarities. So I think for me, you don't get to see any red signs when you first enter into a relationship with a domestic abuser. You are completely and totally love bombed. In my experience, he convinced me that, he had a good career, I didn't need to work, let's get settled in a home near his family. And that was the first step that I didn't see, which I now see is a huge red flag. For me, it started slowly. So I come from a very traditional family where my father always took care of the house. My mum was a homemaker. But his normal and my normal seemed to be very, very different. It started with not giving me any money. I opened up a bank account and he would then say, okay, when you get to a supermarket, you need to tell me what you have so that I can give you the exact money. And it was the most humiliating experience the first time, the second time, the third time, most of the time, when you're having to stand there in front of a cashier and say, I have bread, I've got milk, I've got this, and this cashier is looking at you like you're a crazy person. And still at that point, I just still thought, well, maybe this is a little bit normal. Maybe this is how he works. So I just thought, okay, let's just keep rolling with this. I'm not in any position to, say, okay, I haven't got my money of my own. I don't want to upset him. This is obviously how he wants it to be. And then it got to a point, even with petrol, he would put in enough petrol for me to get from A to B. If I wanted to see my family, it would always be, you're racking up mileage on a car. It became to a point where I couldn't even have a coffee because, I didn't want to ask him money for a coffee in case he got angry. And that seemed that pattern started to happen. Well, where are you going? Who are you going with? Those type of questions started to happen. I started to then be able to make friends, and I started to build that friendship group, started to make my confidence feel that little bit better, that I could have my friends over for a coffee, even if I couldn't have the money to go out. And I'd always make an excuse, whatever, come to me for a coffee, come to me and we'll have a glass of wine. And I think they started to clock because they started to notice the phone calls of me having to say, can I have some money? I need to go to the shops. And I think a lot of them started to make comments saying, why do you need to call him? And it's like, oh, it's his money. And I think, as friends do, and the more friendly you get with people saying to me, it's not right, that's not right. So I thought of ways that I could earn my own money. So I thought it would be a good idea to, have, I had friends who had jewellery, had market stalls and said you could do little jewellery parties or, like years ago, cooking Tupperware parties, I'm showing my age now, and make money from them. And I would go to these parties and he would send his family member with me, that any money that I would earn from those, that they would report straight back to him and I would have to give him that money. And it just got worse. And there was more red flags. I sort of lost myself. There was a time when it was his birthday and I remember him saying to me, well, what have you got me for my birthday? So I don't know where he expected me to get money to buy him a present, and that made me feel awful because I thought, well, what do I do? Do I sell something? What do I have to sell? What can I do? Do I phone my dad and ask to borrow money so that I can buy him a present? And he just sulked and said, well, this is just an awful birthday. And I just remember sobbing, thinking, I'm not good enough. But there was never any empathy with him. It was always like, oh, you look ugly when you cry. Oh, just stop being so dramatic. You're a drama queen. And I would have to take myself out of the house And I remember thinking, please follow me, please cuddle me, because that's all I wanted. I just wanted him to hold me, and I wanted him to stop being the way he was being. And I was doing everything myself, and I was so lonely, so lonely. And I remember I made friends with an American friend of mine, and she said to me, enough's enough of this being in the house. And she said, I'm going to treat you for a lunch. And I thought, wow, that's really lovely, and we become really best friends. And I got a phone call from him. So he would call the house phone constantly to see if I was indoors. And then if I didn't answer the house phone, I had a mobile, which was in his name. Everything was his name. The bills were in his name. He said, there's no point in any bills being in your name because you don't earn any money. And we walked to Pizza Express, and he called me on the mobile, and he said to me, where are you going? My friend's looking at me, and we're both really puzzled. And then, as you do, we made a joke of it. She started mentioning a song. I always feel like somebody's following me, because it then became a habit that he started to know where I was and drop hints where I was. So I think I then made a decision to start calling a number. And then I thought, I can't call the number. And that's where it came back, because I thought, well, it's his phone. He's going to know that I'm going to call a number. Do I go to a phone box? Really, there's not really many phone boxes. And I remember my mum and dad got me the phone, a separate phone. And I was able to talk to a lady on the phone. I went to the doctor. They prescribed me with antidepressants. The antidepressants were making me worse. It just got worse and worse. And it was like, when he would go out, he would switch his phone off. It was uncontactable. He wouldn't take a key to the door. So he knew I had to be at home. These are all red flags that I wish someone had told me, that, these are things that they do to keep you at home, to keep to knowing your whereabouts. And that's when I met another friend of mine who said, he's tracking your phone. And I remember going to Apple, and the woman cried in Apple saying, yeah, you've got every piece of tracker on your phone. He's reading your text messages, your emails, your WhatsApps. He can have access to your photos. And when I confronted him about it, he would scream at me, well, you can have access to mine. I said, well, I don't have access to it. So why are you able to have access to mine? It's private. I have private conversations to my mum on that there. All women talk to their mum. I had no privacy, none. Panic mode struck in, and I thought, okay, and I was so lucky, because I was able to reach out to a family member who owned a recruitment company, and I phoned her and said, I need a job. I'm desperate. I need to have a career. Luckily, she gave me a job, and I loved it. I knew I had to work from the bottom. I knew it was going to be a long process. And I remember doing really well and saying I'm so proud of myself. I've got this job. I'm doing really well. I'm getting money. But then it soon started that he see that I was earning the money. And it became, okay, I need to see a spreadsheet, because in recruitment it's commission based. So I would get a basic, which would go into the bank, in the joint bank account. And then obviously with my commission, it would vary from month to month of how well I'd done. He didn't like not to have that control of not knowing I was earning. So I'd have to make a spreadsheet and show him that commission of that spreadsheet, and that had to go into the bank, exactly into the bank. So when I would then look at the joint bank account, he would then funnel it out to other bank accounts that I never had access to, and say to me, oh, that's a bills account. That's got to go here. So then when I looked at the joint account and finally had access to some form of money, because he said to me, let's get a joint bank account now you're working, that I never really had access to it, because he would funnel the money out to different bank accounts and leave me with exactly, again, back to what I need, even on my own money. And I just thought, I'm back here again. I still can't manage to grab that control back. I still can't manage to grab it back. And that's when the physical abuse started. The verbal got worse. The verbal got really beyond, so much so that I would hide in rooms. And every time there was instance, I would call the police, and I refused to press charges because it's something you just are too scared to do. My immediate reaction when physical abuse happened was not to run out of the house and go to the police, because why would I? The worst one for me was when he put his knee, he came home from a night out, again, didn't have a key, playing music very loudly on his iPad. I had my friend's children there. He came home and he's obviously had a big drink, and I asked him to be quiet, and he grabbed he had the iPad on, humming loudly in the bed, enough to wake the children up. And I went to grab the iPad off of him, and he smashed it in his face and created a nosebleed for himself. And I went into sheer shock. I froze. And with that, he jumped on top of me, headbutted me, and poured his own blood in my face, in my mouth. I couldn't scream. His knee was in my stomach here, that I couldn't even make a sound. And he grabbed me by the throat. And this wasn't the first time. But this time, I actually thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to die. I can't explain how bad that was. I thought, I can't breathe. I'm not going to breathe. I can't even scream for help. But then who's going to help me? The children. And then obviously I woke up the next day, and like previous times when he's been physically abusive and I've shown him pictures, he'll just twist it round. Well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, it was your fault. It was your fault if you hadn't have done that. And I just phoned again the number, but this time I told them what happened, and I had taken pictures of myself with the blood all over me. And they said, enough's enough. We're actually going to take it out of your hands. We're going to tell the police to come and take him away. Is there a safe place you can go? And my parents were around the corner, and I remember sobbing to my dad. And my dad was like, I'm so proud of you. This needs to happen now. This can't go on anymore. And my mum just said, you stay here. He had no clue because he was still sitting with headphones on the PlayStation when the police arrived. And the police took him away. They held him for 3 days. I think what the maximum was that they could hold him. And I gave them every evidence that I could with the financial abuse. So I went to the bank, got access to the bank account, and I printed and printed and printed all of the bank accounts, gave them to the police. I gave the police everything that I could possibly give. You know, messages, WhatsApps between us. When the police finally took him, emotionally, I started to become, more prepared. I knew there was going to be a fight ahead, and I was ready for that fight. It doesn't stop you feeling anxious. It doesn't stop your emotions of feeling scared, I always felt like I'm looking over my shoulder. What's he going to do? What's he going to do to me? It's that unknown feeling of what's not knowing that's going to happen, because you know it's coming. You know he's not going to go away quietly. And I thought maybe the police will just take him away. They'll tell him to stay away from me. We can move on, And then I remember the scariest phone call I had was the police saying to me, we're going to have to NFA it. And I was like, I don't understand. What do you mean you're going to have to NFA it? And I said, but I've given you everything. Tell me, make me understand. We just can't. We can't do it. We have to go to court, and we have to say to court, beyond all reasonable doubt, that he abused you. And I said, but you've got the phone records. I've screenshot and showed you how he was tracking me. It's got the thousands of times he's used the tracker and seen even wherever I'm at home. I've got the whole download of it for you. I've given it to you. Why? Tell me, someone please explain. And they just didn't. They didn't come back to me. Just NFA, see you later. And now panic comes in to me. He's going to come to the house. Can he come back to the house? What am I going to do? Like, the police now, they're not doing it. They've not told me, they told him to stay away from the house. What? He's going to be so angry now. He's going to be so angry. And the fear of that is terrorising. I decided to research stuff and decided to reach out to my local MP because I still didn't think the police gave me an answer. And I said, I want the case reopened. They reopened the case, finally. They reopened the case. And I had a particular police officer look at it. And that's when they came to me and said, we've destroyed some of your evidence. Even if you NFA a case, you should never destroy evidence, ever. Please explain to me, you've took witness statements from friends that I haven't spoken to, people I've worked with, people that, you know, have lived next door neighbours who have witnessed the abuse. Please just tell me something why you've NFA'd it. And this guy sat me down and he said, obviously, I can't go through the financial abuse because it would cost fortunes to pay for somebody. But I said, but you didn't need to. I already done that job for you. I gave you the bank statements. I highlighted all the pinging payments of him pinging me money, which showed the financial abuse. You didn't need to pay for a financial person. And even if you did, I made their job easy. It was there, clear. And I've got my bank statements from his bank to my bank. So where's the financial abuse? Well, no, we can't do it. We can't do this. It'd be too costly to do it, and we just don't have the funds to go through the financial abuse. So the financial abuse got pushed aside. And my biggest thing, just after healing, after having extensive counselling, of trying to heal myself away from him, got shot back down really quickly. My main message, hopefully when women get to see this video, would be recognise those red flags. And I know it's really easy to say, well, you know, they're not going to do that to me, you know, it's not going to be that bad to me. These red flags progress, and it's always good to even just acknowledge them. I went through life with an abusive partner, but this isn't the end for that. That's not going to be the final thing for me that defines me. What's going to define me is helping other women in my situation and much worse change the law, put more laws in place, and that's where I want to go. I don't want to be a victim. I want to be a survivor, and I want to help.